pleasure to introduce to you the man of the hour,
Tony.
Hello and welcome back to a very delayed but very special At the Gates. I am that guy Tony, and with me, as always on this date, the home opener in July, just like we planned it, Mr.
Tall guy Jared.
Atlanta Jared is back, and 2020 baseball is back. And yeah, just like we planned it. July at the stadium, not able to get in, wearing masks. You saw this one coming, right?
Absolutely. Can we do this more often where opening day is midsummer and 85 degrees or whatever it is right now?
This is the warmest home opener here at Target Field history.
The history of history baseball?
So Jared, where have you been? What have you been doing? It's 2020, like we said, it's end of July. How many baseball games have you been to?
I've been to all of them so far.
And where exactly are we?
Outside of Gate 34 at lovely Target Field.
Do you count this in your streak of home openers attended?
Sure, why not?
So that makes 11, I guess. We haven't missed one here at Target Field. As far as the experience goes, for up until first pitch, where does this rank?
I would say that it's at the top for me just because, it's 80 degrees and warm and sunny and it's baseball and it's summertime and
there's not a whole lot of people, and we didn't have to take the entire day off and get up super early and do all that stuff, right?
Can't go wrong with any of that.
I wish I didn't have to work today, but it's kind of nice to not have to burn a day, I guess, because we're burning so much of these vacation days being able to stay at home.
In reality, we probably still could have burned a bunch of days, though, because, we're after having a whole summer canceled, we still have plenty of PTO, so we could have.
True that. I should be pretty much down to a minimal amount of PTO, but instead I have the maximum amount right now. So, I should have had probably about, what would you say, maybe 12 games under my wings right now, probably this season.
That sounds about right. Sure, I'll go with that.
So two down in Mexico, 2 in Europe, opening day, probably a few more here because we got commemorative baseballs, which is also killing me, except I already did get that from summer camp. So that's crossed off the list. But
is that church summer camp?
Yes, just like Childish Gambino.
The Church of Baseball?
Yep.
Baseball Jesus?
The Batter Day Saints.
Ooh, that was a good one.
Thanks.
I didn't think fast enough for that.
Yeah, so what type of questions do you have for me? Because I know that you wrote some down, and Jared is going into his pocket.
That's the vlog questions. We'll save those for another day. All right, so I get to bring the topics this year, and Tony has not seen the list, which is pretty...
Well, I've seen the list, but I haven't read it. I can see it right now.
That's true. Which is par for the course, though, because usually it's you springing a whole bunch of random questions on me in the moment. So, first question. Considering this is a unusual season with 60 games, for most teams now.
Sorry, Marlins.
We'll get to that in a second. That leaves the door open for a lot of crazy things to happen this year. So, do you think that the favorites will win, or will there be an underdog that was just an awful team last year that will come through and just take it all this year? The Orioles are 2-1 right now. They're looking pretty good.
From what I saw,
he said sarcastically,
the best 60 games that the absolute worst had, and that would be like the Tigers, the Orioles, the Royals, the Marlins, and teams like that, they even at their best 60 last year, they didn't have a winning record and probably wouldn't be in the playoffs. So I don't think it's going to be any of the junk ones, but those fringe ones, I think you can see a few of the fringe ones get into it, and some of the ones that probably would have lasted the full season might not get in. So I'd say probably 80% is the big players that you expect, and maybe 20%, so maybe up to 4 teams or so could get in.
Fair. And there's 16 teams getting into the playoffs this year, right? They voted to do that.
So it's the top 2 in each division, and then was it 2 wild cards then?
I don't remember.
The top 2, I think it's
just only saw the number.
Yes, then it's the top 2 for win percentage in the rest of the entire each league.
So who is the lowest of the low that you think is actually going to make the playoffs this year?
I don't know the exact teams, but I'm going to guess.
I'm saying guess a team. Who's your horse for the surprise team of the year to make it into the playoffs?
I don't think it's much of a surprise, but the one that's obvious in the Central would be the White Sox. I mean, their last season wasn't terrible, but it just wasn't great. But they're a team that's building for the future, and they can do more right now than most.
So do they get the division spot, or do they have to force their way in behind Cleveland on a wild card?
I think Cleveland and them are going to be pushing it for number 2, but either the wild card or I don't know.
Interesting.
And I'm trying to think what the weakest division, and not just division in American League or National League, but since they're playing in regions right now,
AL Central.
if it's going to be the overall Central is the weakest, or the West. The West could be a little bit weak.
AL West?
Especially, no, I'm just talking about
West
the
region.
overall
Gotcha.
overall region, because I'm trying to think of, since AL and NL teams stay within that region, I'm trying to think of what team might get to play weaker teams, especially one of those fringe ones. So I could see a team like the A's could do a lot of striking, because the NL West, if you get outside of the Dodgers, it can be a dumpster fire sometimes.
That's true. So I did the math, and 100-game season in a typical year would be like, what, 36 or 37 games for this kind of season. What's going to be the number for the top team of wins, and how many wins do you think the Twins are going to get?
I think the Twins get... We're at 834, so I'm just going to go 34.
That's a solid number. I was going to guess 35.
And I think the hottest team, I wouldn't be surprised if I see 40, but anything over 42 would be unreal.
That would be like a 115-win game season or something like that.
Kind of like the Mariners of, what was that, like 01 or something?
Yeah. So this is a fun question. What team is the Karen of Major League Baseball? I want to speak to your manager. I deserve what I'm getting right now, or what I think I should get. I have that mom Karen haircut, the bob. Just let me speak to your manager.
I actually think that it could be the Yankees in a way, because when I think Karen, I think someone who wants to tattle on someone, but is also in the wrong themselves. And the Yankees were kind of looking like that.
In a strict, heavy agreement right now.
So the Yankees were kind of like that, because they were like, Astros are cheating, and they were getting all butthurt. But then it comes out that they potentially, and probably so, weren't exactly on the up and up themselves either. So it's kind of like one of those deals where your typical Karen, this guy's getting something that I'm not getting, even though I'm doing the same wrong thing.
It seems about right. And they would tell on everybody.
Plus, Karens can kind of be from like affluent towns, and some Yankee fans try to be affluent and try to like be gaudy and stuff.
So, is there a bigger Karen team in other major league sports than the Yankees in baseball?
I mean, the obvious new one would be the Seattle Kraken, because it's basically Karen with an extra K.
Ooh, that's a good point. But we haven't had a chance to see how entitled they think they are.
Correct.
The Patriots, maybe?
Not quite, because they don't really try to stick other teams. They don't tattle as much on other teams. They just defend.
Good point.
What team is known for tattling?
But they're still a team that would do a bunch wrong and then get mad when they get called out on it.
But what one would be
Cowboys.
like... Nah, Jerry Jones is too dumb to be a Karen.
Ooh, zinger.
Dang. I think there's a lot of guys in the NBA. What about Kyrie? Kyrie kind of seems like a Karen. So maybe the Nets? Especially because they also have... what's his nuts? From Golden State.
Yeah.
Durant. And they kind of seem Karenish.
I would say maybe the Knicks or the Lakers.
No, James Dolan is also too dumb. James Dolan is essentially the Jerry Jones of NBA.
The Knicks are the aloof Karen husband, maybe then.
Yeah. James Dolan seems like the Doug.
Okay. The Doug
the
is
Doug to the
male
Karen.
name?
I think so. I think someone said
What it was
I don't know.
Okay. If you could...
Oh, wait. First pitch.
There's already...
There's already an out. But no, let's... Shh. Retake this.
Ball.
Oh, first pitch.
Come on, Homer. What are you doing?
Ball.
Okay. So if you could adopt one rule from each league and apply it to another pro sport, what would be the rule that you pick to apply? It doesn't have to be one rule from every league. Just you have one rule from any league that you would like to apply to any other league.
Ooh. We were kind of talking about this. I think it would make sense in this year only as kind of a dry run, and then maybe it would be kind of cool to implement in all-star games or exhibitions after that, or maybe even just minor leagues. Keep it fun somewhere. So NHL has the shootout. I kind of want to see a home run derby.
I'd be on board with that.
Extra innings in this type of season where people don't want to play too much and get too winded because everything's all compacted together and they just want to finish games. That would be perfect for this season.
I agree with you. Let's not touch on that too much because I have a question about that later on. So do you have is that your final answer?
That or get a penalty box for basketball.
Ooh, that could be fun.
Just because I think sometimes too
after 3 fouls you have to sit on your third foul you have to sit in the penalty box or something.
Or if it's more of a physical foul rather than not quite flagrant, but like something.
So do you do a 4-on-5 then?
Yeah, and make it for like 24-second fouls. So essentially like a shot clock's worth of.
Interesting. So you would go out on defense and then you would be able to come back in on offense, basically.
But it has to be a full 24. So if your team somehow gets the ball.
I was just going to ask that question. Okay. So then, if you could combine any two sports, which would you?
Hockey and baseball.
And why is that?
Because I've always wanted to see baseball played on like a sheet of ice, especially like on an actual frozen pond. That'd be sweet.
Yeah, I feel like ground balls would be ridiculously hard to field, and so it would be not so much of.
But could you imagine the diving? That would be freaking sweet. You could slide all over the place.
Yeah, but your range would, because imagine you're standing still, and then you'd have to do your hockey start to get to the ball. You would not make it ever.
Could you imagine breaking up a double play? Skates come up.
That'd be intense. That'd be super intense.
Oh.
Okay, so let's go back to the normal questions here.
He says like we're normal?
There's a lot of differences that are happening this year with the weird summer rules. Have you heard of any cool, maybe like roster management approaches, or what kind of new rules are you looking forward to the most? I've heard of like a long middleman. Obviously,
that's kind of where I was going to go.
The
with.
NL's going with the DH this year.
I don't like that.
Extra innings. You start with a man on second base.
Don't like that.
I've heard people might be doing a pitcher at first base more frequently, and a two-man outfield potentially.
The thing that I like, and we kind of touched on it earlier, would be essentially shrinking, because right now typical team has about 13 guys in their pitching staff. I like the idea of getting it down to about 9 or 10 guys that are current starters or former starters, guys that can go long, and you maybe have literally 1 or 2 at the most, maybe a righty and a lefty, designated closers. And they only come in for their 1 inning to dominate, and the rest are essentially get as long and as deep into the game as you can. So you have, what is that, another 7 to 8 guys outside of your 2 closers that are essentially starters, and then you just kind of rotate them based on performance. It's almost like, it's kind of like going with a hot goalie in hockey. If you have that hot starter, you maybe can go on a 3-day rotation, but on that 3rd day he only goes 2 or 3 innings, and then so he goes 7, 2 to 3, another 7, 2 to 3, and you kind of get guys going like that.
Yeah, but do you think that they're actually going to let them go 7 innings though?
That's the weird part about this year, is that because spring training was cut short and then summer camp was also short, they said for the first time on opening day, no starter went into the 6th inning, which is unheard of.
Sure.
So I don't like that part, because your pitchers are, it's essentially turned into the playoffs, and I think a lot of guys overmanage and outthink themselves in the playoffs. Yeah, you don't want to bleed and give up 3 or 4 runs, but you also don't want to cut a starter short and then burn out your bullpen too much. So Kepler's, if you can tell,
Got a Kepler fan in the crowd out here.
Maximilian Kepler is up.
So do you think that there will be more 7-inning pitchers towards the end of the 60-game season?
I would think so, but then I also don't think so, because then they're going to save them up for the playoffs.
Yeah.
So I think maybe in the month of August is when you're going to get guys that go longer, and then start to shut them down again. It's weird. And I think that's also why you then go to having more current starters or former starters and have longer guys in your bullpen, because if your starters are only going 5, you need other guys that can go 3 or 4.
5 innings is going to be the standard. 5 1/3 is going to be the standard, and then you're going to
Sorry,
have another
Bert.
guy. You're obviously going to have another guy. They're going to try to push to 3.5 innings or something like that, and
it's a 1-2 count to Kepler, by the way.
oh boy, he's going to be swinging. Come on!
I heard a foul ball.
So that brings us to the extra innings rule on second base. You already said you weren't a fan of that, but did you see the game? Dansby Swanson is a familiar name to us. When we
Saw his first game.
When we made our trip to Atlanta, we saw his first game, and boy, they were all about their Dansby down there.
He's kind of like the Joe Mauer of Atlanta, it felt like.
Yeah, so he made history by becoming the first guy to knock that guy in, right? And so he's going to be in the record books for that. So how do you truly feel about this second base deal, and how could it have been done better to salvage a season where you're not forcing teams to play 18-inning games and save their players and all that kind of stuff for a shortened season.
I don't think that you can get around it, but I just don't think it's baseball anymore. Like, not that it's not baseball, it's just not.
It's no different than your home run derby or your shootout that you
Right,
mentioned before.
but that's why I'm saying, like, if you're gonna do something silly, like, do something silly and entertaining, whereas that was like silly and not quite entertaining. It just makes it quicker. Quicker doesn't mean it's more entertaining. So I just,
it is kind of the 3-on-3 overtime hockey rule.
But 3-on-3 makes it open up more and creates a different game, where like this doesn't create a different game.
So what do you do differently? You don't put the guy on second, but maybe you take a player out of the outfield?
I don't even think you do that. I love extra innings. I just love them anyways. So
okay, so
that's hard.
But you got to do something. So what do you do?
Do I? Do I have to do something though?
I think in this season you would have been forced. If you're the commission, you would have been forced to have to do something or make a decision on doing something. So
then maybe do what Japan does, and after the 11th inning, tie.
Is that what they do over in Japan?
Yep.
Interesting. Okay then. Well, I guess the second base rule in extra innings is
the part that I didn't like too is that
Land.
There was a team that scored a run without having an official at bat. That is dumb. And also to like put that in the scoring, I know that they basically said that it's essentially like starting off, it's an unearned run to whoever if it surrenders. Like it's almost like an error and the person that starts at second. But when you have really weird things where you have a guy that can score a run that never had an at bat and was out in the previous inning, it just doesn't make sense statistically too. So it just warps statistics. Why
don't you? Okay, so why couldn't you just create an extra category for that then?
I think
all these StatCast guys are creating all these random stats in the first place. Like, why can't you just create an extra category? Simple as that.
You might be able to, but then it's
the whip of the ERA.
But it's not, because it'd be like saying,
I don't know what I'm talking about with stats, so just
because it's not like a secondary stat. It's just more like
it's the BAPI.
How would you call it, like regular runs and then extra inning run?
Sure.
So RR and XR.
Sure, why not?
It just feels, but then on the scoreboard, it's not that there's anything different. It's just a run. It's very weird.
It's no different than any of the other stats that get created. It would just be a new stat.
And like I pointed out, you can also have a guy that pitches a perfect game that loses. That shouldn't happen, because that's literally not possible.
It's just that's part of the statistic.
But that's not a statistic. That's how can you justify calling something a perfect game if the guy loses?
Here's the idea, right? Prior to 2000, whenever all these extra StatCast categories came in, the stats never existed, right? They can go back in time and try to add them or calculate the stats for the players that might have been there and all that kind of stuff. But at some point, a new stat gets added for whatever reason.
Well, this isn't even a stat, though. This is just a categorization of that game. So it was weird with no hitters, but it was known that you could lose a game or give up runs with a no hitter, because that can happen. But part of the idea with a perfect game and why it was called a perfect game is because there's no way you can lose. It's as good as a pitcher can do. They face the bare minimum, but now you can still face the bare minimum, but you could lose.
Yeah.
And but then how do you justify it? Like, do you have a different category that says perfect game asterisk?
Sure.
We don't need subcategories for that.
So then what do you need all those other stats for?
It's not a stat.
It doesn't matter. Stats, categories, whatever. There's all sorts of weird filters and categorizations that basically what I'm saying is if
it would be
if
kind
it
of
exists, you can put it somewhere.
It would be kind of like saying that you are the World Series champion, even though
I get it.
You didn't win as many games in the World Series.
I get it. Some people just have a hard time wrapping their minds around the fact that like it exists and therefore it shouldn't be. Well, I get it, but that's the way it is. So you got to do something about it. You might as well.
Well, you don't have to do something about it because you didn't have to.
It's happening. It's happening. You didn't have to, but it's happening right now.
Yep.
So
that's why I think it's silly that it happened.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair. So anyway, yeah, I can understand why it.
That was quite the rabbit hole, huh?
I can understand why people are not fans of it, but also like at the end of the day, like I said, it exists. So you might as well put it somewhere. And in the extremely rare event that somebody has a perfect game or a no-no or
that's
something
why I
like
really
that
want to see
and loses, like it's there, so you're gonna have to do something with it.
That's
right?
why I really want to see what happens with Major League Baseball if that scenario, as unlikely as it is, would happen.
Right, because why not? It would be hilarious. Right?
Because then you almost force the commissioner, you force the game to not only recognize it, but then be like, so,
right,
what does this mean?
But the idea kind of is like you can't change your circumstance now, so you just have to change yourself. If that makes
Would you
any
rather
sense.
have a perfect game that you end up getting the loss in extra innings because you gave up 2 sacrifice flies and the runner scored?
What do you? First of all, I think I know where this is going, but do you think if a pitcher throws a perfect game, do you think he continues into that extra inning, or do you think the manager pulls them to go?
No, he would go.
Okay,
especially a perfecto. Yeah.
So you're saying he's going the full length. Okay.
Yep.
They're
So
not just pulling him for.
Would you rather have this weird scenario happen, or would you rather be like that? I'm blanking out on his name. Was it Galarraga for Detroit that pitched the perfect game, but in the final out, the umpire got it wrong and gave him a base hit? You remember that, like a few years ago? Would you rather have that happen or lose a perfect game in the new rules?
Probably perfect game and lose, because
then it's on MLB.
The perfect game still happened.
Yep.
And like that runner on second base, everybody would know it's not my runner.
Yep.
So it is what it is. But if you're the other way around where the ump blows the call, it's like that's not in a sense, it's not really a perfect game because it gets lost.
But on the same end, let's say you won the game that the umpire blew the call, then it sucks because like,
did they win or
it's going to be
game? I don't think it matters,
they still won.
Okay.
Wouldn't it kind of suck
still,
though, because like you would feel dejected because you lost but you had a perfect game? Like, how would there be a celebration?
For me, okay, I think way differently. I've noticed over time that I think way differently than a lot of people do. I would know in my head, either way,
Yep.
but I would know in my head for sure that the perfect game is a perfect game, and I just lost it on a technicality or a circumstance due to dumb rules of a shortened season or whatever. Whereas, like a perfect game that's blown by an ump, it's like that's a typical game. There's not weird rules and all this kind of stuff. It's just.
So what happens?
Because I think ultimately, if you basically you would be saying in the one instance, if that ump was not there, I would have made that perfect game.
Yep.
But that's the argument we're dealing with right now.
Yep.
Should we have umps in the game? Should it be automated? Should it, all that kind of stuff? It's like a lot of the reason why people want to keep umps in the game is because it's a judgment call.
Yep.
Right? So the guy made a bad judgment call, but that's normal in the course of a game. At any other point in the game, there was probably 2, maybe 3 other close judgment calls or something that could have taken that perfect game away. So,
and I think I agree with you on that end, but what I'm asking is almost more from like the team perspective. Because a lot of guys, even though when they retire or when they're being brutally honest, they do say, yeah, I love personal records and I'm not ashamed of it.
Yep.
But usually they say that in conjunction with but I also want the team to win. Like, if we're winning and I get those things, then it means a lot.
Yeah.
So that's where I'm wondering, like,
in either case, I had no control over the win outside of that circumstance.
But I'm wondering if you lose it in the extras, even though it stayed perfect, because you stayed perfect, you have a reason to celebrate. Do you celebrate? And also, do you get mad if some of your teammates get mad at you for celebrating?
Sure. Well, that's a different question than what you were before, because the question before was more person-centered focus, and now this question is team-centered focus. And it's always been my philosophy that team comes first. So I would do anything and everything to power my team to a win, right? But in both circumstances, that's what I did, right? So long as I could do my part to help the team win, if the team wins, great. But at the end of the day, I don't get a choice whether to have the ump blow the call but we still win, or we go to extras and I lose on a run.
So do you celebrate if you're the pitcher, and then likewise if you're not the pitcher but you are a guy in that game, do you celebrate?
I think if you throw a perfect game but still lose, then they'd probably still celebrate you. But at the end of the game, if I'm pitching in the 10th inning with a runner on second base, and
especially if you're the home team and it's not a home team, but if you're the visiting team and it's a walk-off, it's going to look really weird if both teams are celebrating because one won and the other one pitched a perfect game.
Right. But then again, if you're pitching a perfect game in the ninth, it wouldn't go to extra innings ever anyway, would it?
Yeah, it would. Because let's say
0-0 tie.
The other team gave up 5 hits, but no runs.
I'm trying to think, like, it seems like that's such a crazy, like, bonkers scenario. I'm trying to think of, like, if that really is possible. Because, like, we obviously come up with random things that more than likely are just...
it's very possible. That's why, like, I bring that up, because it's rare, but you can have two teams go 0-0 into the 10th inning.
That's true.
It's just that in this case, one of the pitchers has it.
But
perfect.
So let me just get this straight before we go too much farther. If you've thrown a perfect game through 9, you go to 10, and a runner starts at second base, and you're still in the game to complete that perfect game. If you lose, there had to have been a series of events where you still don't get a perfect game, right?
Nope. Because it could literally be 2 flyouts. And without that runner on second, 2 flyouts to start an inning.
No outs. You walk the first guy, but that's not...
No, not even walk. I'm just saying if you didn't have a guy on second.
The guy's already started on second base, sorry. So yeah, that's true. Okay, I'm back on board. For some reason I got lost on a train of thought about, like, how that probably wouldn't be possible, but anyway, yeah, I would say to me it's all about whatever I can do to help the team win. And
personally, I feel like if I was a pitcher, I would celebrate, and at the same time, if my teammates got mad at me, I'd be like, screw you guys, you didn't score a run for me. You could have easily done something about this. If you don't like the way that I handled this, why didn't you handle your job and just give me 1 run?
Yeah. I mean, we would have had to start it with a guy on second base too.
Yep.
So the exact same circumstance could have happened, and all it takes is 2 fly balls to get a guy in. Like, just hit 2 fly balls.
Yep.
Or one person
hit
has to hit a single.
Yep.
Like, he's in. So.
Or if you have Buxton, who's the guy at second, a stolen base and a pass ball. Anything.
2 stolen bases. Could you imagine?
Oh,
that'd be just
a stolen base walk off.
Yeah.
From a guy. Oh god, that'd be awesome.
Okay. Well, that got down a pretty crazy rabbit hole. I suppose this can be the last question, because we're going on a pretty long conversation now. 34 minutes. Cool. Thanks for hanging around with us, fans.
Gate 34, minute 34.
What a coincidence, huh? It's like we looked at
Whoa.
just the right time. Double rainbow. Okay.
Double pocket.
So we find out today that the Marlins tested 4 more players positive for coronavirus, and that makes for 17 total. what is it, 2 coaches and the rest are players? Is that what it was? And all of their games are postponed till Sunday. So first of all, how in the heck are they going to salvage a Marlins season out of all of that? And second of all, how in the heck can they salvage the rest of the season out of this? Because you and I both know that the odds that other teams are not going to be affected by this, not just by not playing games or having games delayed or moved or whatever,
But the actual virus?
but then the actual virus infecting other people during this time. Like, Major League Baseball has got a lot of work to save face on this one.
They do. The first part is easy. I just saw this reported the last 24 hours. When the first 8 tested positive, they basically said, don't worry, the 60 game isn't hard and fast. If most of the teams do 60, but a few have 55, 58, whatever the case is, it doesn't matter as much. This season is so weird that they're not going to make them play. They would just still go off of the best winning percentage.
In reality, it's the Marlins too, so it could have happened to a better team.
No, not necessarily. Because let's say none of these guys get good enough and they keep perpetuating it within their clubhouse, they could finish 2-1. That would be the best win percentage.
The best thing to happen.
So they could get into the playoffs playing only 3 games.
Gee.
But to answer the other part, that was about the what do they do because of the virus and stuff.
Because we know that it's going to have infected other teams. And
Like I told you before, when all of this happened, we don't deserve it with the way that our country has handled it. We also had other issues that...
Don't make this political. Stick to the question.
It wasn't political. We haven't handled...
Without a question.
We haven't...
The country has handled it. Just stay with the baseball.
We haven't... In our country, it's rampant. But I also think that obviously a lot more attention was given to just make it work rather than planning, because we also had a team that went homeless, and that was the Blue Jays. They literally don't have a home. If you're planning for a season and want it to be as normal and as accommodating and as practical as possible, the very least you can do is make sure that there's a place for each team to play. That's the basic. And so if you weren't planning that, I don't have a lot of confidence in your ability to plan for the virus, and that's the very thing that is threatening the season to begin with.
That's very true. Why do you think that they didn't do a bubble in the first place?
I think baseball wanted to be the one that was normal.
Differently.
Yeah, and also they were kind of on board with this whole we're a summer league. And
was it the players that said that they wanted to play in major league stadiums, or was that the owners?
I think it's mainly actually for TV, so more owner side. Players like it because it's the accommodations, but I think no matter what, like if they want to get paid, like it's not going to be. They're already not really all able to be in the clubhouse at once. They're not able to all be in the dugout. They're having to spread out anyways. So I don't know. Plus, I mean, some of them play in Oakland, and that's not exactly major league level clubhouse.
Yeah.
Even Wrigley isn't really known, although they did renovate that now. But in the past,
walking through all the sewer water in Oakland, that's a pretty big problem. You know, I mean, when the owner tries to convince you that sewer water is the carpet.
Yeah, we just got new brown carpet.
Yeah. I think what I'm going to ask the question, and I'm going to put my answer first. What do you think is one of the good things that is going to come out of all of this chaos and nonsense and the Marlins testing so many positive, all that kind of stuff? My answer is I think it's going to provide the opportunity to way more players to get major league experience. And not only that, like in the Marlins case, that's like 2/3 of their team is down with coronavirus right now. So a whole new set of players. Think of the Twins from like the mid-90s when they sucked donkey. Like, just imagine what cycling out the whole roster would do to just everything from top to bottom within the clubhouse. The opportunities that's going to be able to provide for so many players, I think that's going to be a huge benefit to
it's funny because that's exactly where I was going. I love seeing guys get a chance, even if it's just a cup of coffee with the club.
Hope that there's a player or two, especially from the same team, that
essentially makes their name
and it's like
out of
Mike
this.
Trout Jr. kind of deal. And it's like the team would have never known because that's like think of like the Angels, for example, that have Mike Trout in the outfield, and there's a backup. Exactly right. There's a backup in the minor leagues waiting for his chance. That's never going to get a chance. Because
literally
of
think
Trout.
of AAA, AA, single A, high A, low A, and anyone they draft. If you're a center fielder, that's got to be demoralizing.
Yeah. So there's no, not that you want Mike Trout to get COVID or anything like that, but like there's no better opportunity for them to be able to step up like that now.
I love guys getting their first look, but it's also nice because we even saw it in Colorado with that Bard. He had been out of the game for like 7 years. He's now back. There could be something like that happens, and maybe it's not even as drastic as being out of the league for years, but it's one of these guys that just got DFA'd. It's just one of these guys that didn't sign a contract until later or was hurt and making this miraculous comeback.
Who was the guy that he made his, like, this is the first time pitching in like 6 years or whatever like that just pitched the other day and like did really good.
Yep.
And was like,
that was with the Rockies, that Bard guy.
Was it?
Yep.
That's the same guy?
So he had a case of the yips, basically out of the game, and then figures it out. He was even an advisor to, I think, like the D-backs or something like that. So he was
that might be
up in their front office thinking his career was done, and then in his upper 30s,
like a pitching coach
gives him another shot, and then all of a sudden he figured it out.
To piggyback off of that, what is the yips of the non-professional sports player? What is the yips of the non-athlete professional level regular Joe lifestyle?
Charles Barkley golfing?
Ooh. No, not a pro, just like you and me. What would be the yips? What would the equivalent of the yips to us?
Like not playing a sport then?
Yeah,
like just in our daily life?
Professional sports, what's the yips for us?
Right, I know, but I'm saying like the yips of what we do in our job.
Yeah, you go into the office every single day. What's the yips at your office?
Mine would, since I play in spreadsheets, maybe it's,
it's something that has to be, it's part of your regular daily work that you just cannot do, even though it should be incredibly easy.
And also it should be something that you actually did, and then you'd like have a mind block. I can't think that this would ever happen, but somehow, and it almost has to do with like us getting hurt or amnesia or something. Like if I just forgot how to use formulas in Excel.
VLOOKUP.
Like that would be insane. And I guess it could happen where, like, let's say Excel comes out with a completely new program or way of doing it. Like, I guess it's like that. And maybe that's it. Maybe it's we, at our normal job, since both of us do insurance type of work and play with files on computers, maybe it's us getting a new software package and just not being able to figure it out. Even though it looks the same as the one before,
I kind of had that with my job. I've been doing work in Adobe Illustrator, Adobe Photoshop, and stuff like that for 20 some odd years now in a non-professional setting. And my work just had me change jobs to help out with UX design, and they're using a program called Sketch, and it's like, it's virtually the same, but obviously some of the stuff is a little bit different. But it's like you just sit down and you're like, what am I doing right now? And then you watch a couple tutorials on YouTube and you're like, okay, this was so easy, why am I being so stupid? Like, the button's right there, right in front of your face. And yeah,
could it and I bet you I could probably teach myself again, but I guess the only case of yips that I can think of that's semi-related, even though it's not my job or anything, is back in high school, I would download... Did you have those graphing calculators?
Heck yeah.
So did you ever download the games and stuff where you could
Heck
play it on there? So
Drug Wars.
I would do that, but then I would
Snake.
also get to be a nerd and look at the programming behind it. And even though I didn't do anything as crazy as like Drug Wars or like a racing game or something like that, I still was able to read enough where I made my own like poker game and stuff like that. So learn what is that basic? I think it was like a form of basic programming.
Was it? I don't know.
I think so.
I am not that into code.
But I taught
I figured it
myself.
would be like C# at simplest, but I don't think it's that. I think it's...
For some reason, I thought it was.
I feel like it has
a
to be way
variant of
simpler
basic or
than that,
something.
because I feel like we had a bunch of dumb kids in our school programming stuff like that.
But like I obviously didn't take any courses or anything, but I made like 2 or 3 of my own games, and I was like, this is pretty cool. But now when I think about that, I wouldn't have a beginning of. I couldn't write the first line.
Except the funny part about that is where the yips come in is it's easier now than it has ever been to make games and stuff. So like even on your iPhone now, there's an app called like Shortcuts or something like that. That makes it super easy to make simple little applications and stuff, widgets or whatever. iOS 14 in a month and a half, 2 months.
So we're getting close, getting towards the end. This might be the only one that we do in 2020. Who knows?
Probably. Do you think we'll do one when we make the playoffs?
Probably, unless by that time they play it in hubs. Actually, I wouldn't be surprised if playoffs do go to hubs, just because at that point...
You wouldn't want to jeopardize the whole team.
Yeah, you don't want to jeopardize it, and you also don't want to have to worry about travel. And then on top of it all, you're getting into fall and even towards late fall, and that's potentially when, if they're correct, when it starts to pick up again and potential second wave or just potential getting worse. I want to see it here, but I'm not hopeful. I don't want to get my hopes up, because I did that back in March, and we're standing outside a gate with masks on.
At the end of the day, as long as they make the World Series, that's all that matters.
Oh, that's all that matters? They have to make the World Series?
Well,
so anything short of that?
Well, we made the playoffs how many times in the last 20 years and haven't made it out of the first round. So
the Yankees are the final boss, though.
I would say at least the ALCS, and then everything after that is gravy. But we're shooting for the moon here, so World Series or bust. Especially in a shortened season, like you can take so much advantage of weird situations and stuff to take that dub.
So we'll leave it there. Twins just scored a run. We are up 1-0, and I'm gonna call it. That's how the game ends. Homer Bailey, congrats on your first Minnesota Twins win.
Homer Bailey should hit a home run before we sign off, but he won't get a chance. So
Homer Bailey, barely know her. I don't know.
Let's go, Kepler!
That guy wants Kepler to go, so I think he can stay. But well,
maybe he's late for a date with him or something.
He is wearing his shirt. It's kind of awkward. So that's it.
Can you imagine going on a date with somebody, a blind date, and they have a shirt with your name or face on it? Like, I came here for you. I'm here for you. Like, that'd be creepy as hell.
Save that for the next podcast. Creepy dating things, scenarios.
All right.
All right. Good night.